So I'll kick off.
Absolutely.
All right. So my name is David Harvey. I'm the Vice President of Vendor Alliances at Nuvias Group. Extremely pleased to be here for the launch of NetMotion by Absolute. First, it was an opportunity for me to get to wear a suit, which is probably the first time in 2 years, and I was massively surprised that it could actually fit into it. And the second reason is that this is actually the second vendor that we launch under our Frontier program, which we announced last year. And Frontier is aimed at taking emerging vendors and emerging technology to market. And we did this not as a marketing stunt because it's cool to take new stuff to market. We did it because we see the application of new technology creating new challenges, think cloud, or providing new solutions to solve old problems, think phishing and ransomware. Our world is getting more complex, driven by high impact technology trends such as cloud, AI, 5G, the convergence of IT, OT, as well as societal changes such as the hybrid workforce and workforce automation, to name but two. Cybersecurity, in my opinion, by its very nature, requires that defenders should keep one step ahead of the attackers, but in reality, it feels more the other way around. And I firmly believe that there is a significant change needed in the way we, that's end users and the channel as trusted advisors, go about achieving and maintaining cybersecurity resilience. If we don't do this of our own volition, it's going to be forced on us more and more by legislation and compliance drivers in both public and private sectors. And this has already started to happen. The ransomware attack that hit Continental Pipeline in May of last year was a watershed event. A red line was crossed as critical infrastructure was impacted and viewed as a threat to national security, which in turn drove legislation in that same month, the Cybersecurity Executive Order, requiring federal institutions across the United States to implement zero trust, amongst other things. And the downstream ramifications were that all third-party suppliers to the federal institutions are now being mandated to have specific security and data management practices in place. Another major policy in the works is the EU's DORA, Digital Operations Resilience Act, which is expected to go through in 2022, so this year, and aims to provide operational resilience across the financial sector, guaranteeing business continuity in the event of a cyber attack. It will also oblige critical third-party ICT providers to comply with regulatory standards. In my opinion, this will drive the adoption of ZTNA, SASE, and the implementation and delivery of continuous vulnerability and risk management. This is a great channel opportunity. With Frontier, we are identifying the emerging technology solutions needed to deliver an end-to-end solution stack addressing two core technology segments, hybrid cloud and SPOT. We do this by reading a lot and researching a lot, working closely with analysts, and we follow smart money, working closely with VCs. And last but not least, we'd like to involve our Frontier reseller partners. So the program is both vendor and reseller facing. For the vendors, we provide a bespoke early engagement sales motion, which we nurture to maturity to take into the Nuvias core business for scale acceleration. For this, we have a small, highly specialized sales team with a proven track record in direct enterprise sales. For the resellers, we offer access to a selection of innovative vendors, use of our sales and SE sales experts as an extended workbench to jointly engage existing customers, and we will run regular demand generation solution campaigns to win net new end user logos. We will also provide regular technology briefings on key and emerging trends, and we will invite the Frontier resellers to be involved in the selection of our emerging vendor pipeline. The Frontier team will be complete in the Benelux as of February 1, at which point we can fully engage in the recruitment of resellers into the program. I believe that we will have no more than 10 to 15 resellers across the Benelux because we have limited resources and need to go deep. Does this mean that resellers not in the program cannot have access to Frontier vendors? Absolutely not. They can. The same way that they can access any of the vendors on the Nuvias line cards in the Benelux. What are we now seeing in the marketplace? Well, we're observing an increased adoption of solutions that were considered bleeding edge a couple of years ago, such as ZTNA and SASE. And then there's some new concepts and architectures bubbling up, such as SSE and Gartner's cybersecurity mesh, as well as CNAP. We do love our acronyms. So watch this space. But right now, I'd like to hand over the floor to NetMotion, who have a game-changing solution addressing the needs of the hybrid workforce. Over to you, Shamita.
So thanks everyone for joining today's launch event. At Absolute, our mission is to enable resilient work from anywhere for our customers. My name is Shamita Vidanapatirana, and I'm responsible for our channel partnerships across Europe. Today, we've got a few people on the call. Just to introduce, David already gave his introduction, but we also have IJsbrand van Dam, who's our senior system engineer on the Nuvias Frontier Programme, as well as Sen Chandaka, who's our vendor alliance manager from Nuvias. We'll be hearing from them a little bit later on, but I wanted to move on and sort of talk to you about why we're doing this, why we're doing the launch, and why we're talking to you right now. So starting off with a couple of headlines that are dominating the newswires and the impact that it's having on the overall business landscape. So we talked about, there was a few acronyms that were there by David as well. So just to level set, there was a few trends that we are seeing in the market, and they're not very unique ones, but they are growing and increasing. The first trend is around remote worker populations. Traditionally, remote working, when you talk about remote working, it was more around industry verticals like logistics and transport and public services like ambulance services or fire rescue, police. And only a small population of us considered ourselves as remote workers. But due to the COVID scenario and the pandemic, as well as the climate change initiatives that are coming across countries, the organizations and government are moving rapidly to hybrid working. So we firmly believe that this is not a temporary measure just to get over COVID, that hybrid working will continue and will continue to grow. The second thing that's happened over the last 2 years is that the digital transformation projects have increased, and it's increased exponentially because of COVID. The acceleration of moving to cloud, to hybrid cloud, has enabled an explosion of devices that access this data, whether it's on-premise data or whether it's cloud data. There's an increase in that. And what you should have to notice is that these devices and the data now are residing outside of the traditional corporate boundary. So these two actually bring up quite a few challenges to organizations. And one is the security of that data. And as I said, the data now is on these devices that are accessing cloud or on-prem, but they're accessing it through networks that IT don't control. Traditionally, we would control it. We would have our firewalls, we would have internal security measures on corporate. So security is a concern. The second, and I think the most important one, is the end user experience. So we were talking to one of our customers and they said, look, when the pandemic hit, I went from managing 4 offices globally to 1,500 offices globally. That's a burden on IT, because the expectation of end user experience, meaning if I'm working from home or working from anywhere outside the office, I need the same end user experience. I need the same performance as you would give me if I was in office. So remote working was traditionally, at least for professional services, financial services, legal services, was sort of a privilege. We used to work from home. We used to get a bit of a benefit. We thought it was a privilege. But now it's flipped around, and IT needs to make sure that experience is great. So that's the second part. So to address some of these challenges and more, there's a few frameworks out there. Gartner, Forrester, they come up with these blueprints like SASE on how to solve the challenges that come up from hybrid working. And customers, and this is why we're talking to you, is that we're hearing customers investigating the technologies that make up this SASE or Secure Access Service Edge framework. Technologies like Zero Trust Network Access, experience monitoring, cloud VPN, and many other technologies. They're investigating it now because they need solutions that are gonna not only give them business continuity, but business growth. So to talk a little bit more about SASE, ZTNA, and some of the other technologies, I'll hand over to Icebrand to give you a bit more flavor to it.
Thank you. Yeah, as David already said, we work in a marketplace that really likes its acronyms and its shorthands and all that kind of thing. So I thought it would be useful to set a quick baseline of what do we mean when we say SASE, what do we mean when we say ZTNA, just to provide a bit more context when we start looking deeper into what the actual solution is that NetMotion is able to offer. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So SASE stands for Secure Access Services Edge, is a term that was coined by Gartner in 2019. And it's important to note it's not a product, it's more a design framework and a collection of different solutions that work together to solve a certain problem. And Shamitha already raised two of the main concerns that are currently arising that tie into the same problem that SASE is trying to solve. For example, if you look at the average employer right now, they tend to employ about 8 different SaaS applications. They also still need to use devices that are in the local network. They still need local applications, but they're no longer necessarily working from that office. They're now working from home, or they're on the road, they're at a coffee shop. So we have a combination of problems. We need to have a more flexible work environment, while we're also consuming applications that are based no longer in our own network, but globally, basically. That is causing some issues, because we still want to be able to have a central point of management to set certain policies. We don't want to let any of these data flows just run free, and we still need to get certain level of visibility into whatever is happening so that we can process that and make sure that we create security. Well, in order to meet those goals, the SASE framework was designed. There are a few core components in there that are important in order to actually be able to provide this solution. You can see some of them on this slide. So, for example, software-defined WAN, very important in order to have that flexibility when it comes to data routing outside of a network between different locations. Cloud VPN, not unimportant when we're looking at a lot of people working from home, but also security services like firewall as a service or a secure web gateway. With the increase of cloud application, having some form of security broker for those applications in the form of CASB, for example. And probably the most important one when you're starting out designing a SASE solution is the Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA, ZTNA, depending on on your preference. And if you can go to the next slide, please. These will be the ones that we're focusing on today, because these are the main topics where NetMotion really has a very strong top-of-class solution. The combination between Zero Trust, Cloud VPN, and that experience monitoring. So what do we mean when we say Zero Trust? Next slide, please. So Zero Trust is, in essence, it boils down to a shift in access policy. So traditionally, when we looked at access, we had a very strong perimeter between outside network, inside network. Inside network is anything that is inside our own network, and we tend to trust what goes on there because we have visibility there. So we're assuming that it's okay. And outside the network is everything else. That is where the big danger lies. That is where everyone tries to steal your data, and anything that comes from outside is dangerous. Problem that we're having right now is that, well, the majority of the applications that we're running are actually in what we would traditionally call outside, and a majority of our users are also outside. So the old way of looking at trust within a network doesn't really work anymore. So zero trust kind of flips that on its head. Instead of saying we trust anything inside, we say we trust nothing and we verify everything. And this verification always happens usually happens in two steps. We have a human verification step, where we verify, is the person that tries to access this application or this service actually allowed to access this? And there is a device verification. Is the device that this user is using to access this service or application trusted by us? Does it meet the security standards that we require? Is it the type of device that we allow? Is this device in a location where we think, oh, it's fine to access this application? Having that combination allows us to be much more stringent and much more granular when it comes to security policies and access policies. And that is the baseline of what zero trust network access is performing. One important note there as well is because we have that continuous risk assessment, we can make changes and revoke certain permissions on the fly. So if at some point I get access to an application, and all of a sudden my device gets infected because on the site I'm still accessing certain websites, and well, one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden I'm now infected, that can immediately trigger a policy that actually revokes my access to that certain application. The other thing it allows us to do is say, you know what, yes, you can get access to this specific service, but if you want to have access to a different service, you have to go through that whole song and dance again to make sure that you are still able to also access that data stream. So it allows us to really isolate certain, basically perform full isolation of any of the network traffic. So now that we have this high-level view of what do we mean with SASE, ZTNA, Shmitha, can I hand it back to you to go a bit deeper into how this actually works in practice when we look at the NetMotion solution?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to the next slide, Sen, we'll talk about some of the customer case studies, and then we can come back and sort of look at the architecture, because I think it'll be much clearer. Thanks, Icebrein. As we sort of talked about ZTNA, this is a sort of a quote from Gartner, because by 2023, 60% of enterprises will phase out most of their remote access VPN. And just to be clear, this is a journey. It's not going to happen by 2023. Everything will change to ZTNA, because organizations are in this journey from fully on-prem to fully cloud, and I don't really think that it will be ever fully cloud, because there are certain applications that will always reside, or even some verticals that will always want to have something on premise. But it is a journey, and different verticals are at different places within this journey. What NetMotion by Absolute can do is it can cater to the fully on-prem, to the hybrid, to the full cloud. So the full gamut of this network transformation that the organizations and customers are going through, we can help with that. So I wanted to take a few use cases that where customers have really real world examples of why customers bought NetMotion by Absolute. So customers, first of all, buy us for the optimized remote access. Now, when we talk about VPN, and there was like articles around VPN is dead a few years ago, right? VPN's dead, nobody wants VPN. But VPNs, people think that VPNs are commoditized and that everything is the same, every VPN is the same. But if you actually read Gartner's VPN guide that was published, they actually specifically call out and recommend organizations move to VPNs that can optimize the connection and have that persistent connection for applications, for mission critical application, that is. The technology that NetMotion has is proprietary, and we've built it from ground up, and no other enterprise ZTNA VPN provider has it. So that's a unique selling point for us into our customers. So customers like Nexus, Lutzwesen, or the AA, they are traditional field services engineers who have mission critical applications on their devices. They need to access data as and when they move around in variable network conditions. So if the network switches, they move from cell tower to cell tower or cell tower to Wi-Fi or back, traditional VPNs can't handle that. What NetMotion will allow them to do is to be able to access data, work with those mission critical applications, and make sure that they don't need to re-authenticate to those applications, make sure that the applications don't crash or you don't need to restart. That's one thing. The other thing that they brought us for is because they access sensitive data. And with all the GDPR fines and those kinds of things that are going around, you also need to make sure that whatever data that you're accessing, from whichever network you're accessing, you are protecting that. So sensitive data protection was one of the other problems that we solved for them. This also goes for ambulance services within the Netherlands. I think we have 50% plus of the ambulance services using NetMotion technology. And they essentially access sensitive patient data and medical records from the ambulances. Therefore, they need NetMotion, not just for security, but also they are moving around pretty aggressively and they need that connection. So it's mission critical, it's patients' lives at stake. But to move on to some of the other customers within different verticals, and this is a growth area for us, as I said, because of remote workers, traditional remote, not the professional services, legal services, and those kinds of verticals lighting up more and more users. Means that customers like Osborne Clarke, which is a legal firm, Lincoln International, who are consultants that are traveling around as well as working from home, they bought the full solution initially for that we provided best connectivity, but also around the granular security policies that we can apply onto the device. And I'll come back to how we do that and why we're special in a later slide. They also means that IT departments of Osborne Clarke and Lincoln could actually get metrics around network performance, application performance, and user behavior so that they could take that, feed that into the analytics engine, look at it, and make changes to the granular policy engine, which means that you could enhance the end user experience or prioritize mission critical applications. So that's why one of the other reasons that organizations buy us. It also helps us resolve, proactively resolve issues because you can collect statistics, analytics, and then you can resolve them on the fly, which means that it reduces help desk tickets, it reduces operational cost. Overall, so these customers' main business objectives were to increase compliance, so reduce their risk of accessing sensitive data, to enhance business productivity and end user experience. And that's a really big topic around CIOs, end user experience. You'll see when the new research comes out around IT spending, you will see end user experience right at the top of them with ZTNA, with those kinds of technologies. You will see that. And then the other business objective that they got is to reduce operational cost of moving to this hybrid work. If you go to the next slide, so that I wanted to sort of round off with the different elements that we have within the NetMotion platform. So one of the things around why NetMotion is because, as I said, it can allow you to transition from that traditional network security, which we provide, through to hybrid, through to full SASE. So all of these in one platform. And we achieve this by providing the best-in-class enterprise VPN. VPN is not dead, it is still much alive. We are differentiated because it's proprietary, because it's patented persistence and optimization technologies that we use. Adding to that, the SDP, which essentially we had SDP before the term SDP, because it's essentially conditional access, right? It's a new term, but conditional access. And one of the main differentiators is that our conditional access is on the device itself, and the visibility that we can provide is from the device itself. So with traditional SDPs or VPNs or ZTNA solutions, once you split out traffic to go direct versus to a gateway or a cloud service, you lose visibility. Losing visibility means losing control. And one of the major advantages of customers getting NetMotion is that you don't lose visibility when you move to SDP, when you move to ZTNA. And overall, everything is really around the policy engine and how it interacts with the experience monitoring capabilities. So we would collect analytical data, feed that back in, and enhance the experience, and the cycle continues, right? So that's why we have customer renewal rates of 97%, right? Over the last 20 years. We've got customers who renew year after year because they have so much advantage out of using the solution. It also means that once we demo and once we do a proof of concept, we convert 2 out of 3 we convert 2 out of 3 proof of concepts into a deal. So the POC success rates are very, very high with our technology because we can prove return on investment for customers. So if you go back to the slide with the diagram, I just wanted to sort of cover off how we do it. But this is essentially what the platform provides. The NetMotion client sits within the device. It creates that conditional, there's a granular policy engine that sits on the device. If someone tries to access an application, a service, a web URL, what it does is it looks at the policy. Is it allowed? Is it blocked by my content filtering? Is it in a category where there's legal liability for an organization? And it can stop it if that's your policy. If it is allowed traffic, then an allowed application, if it's allowed at a certain time period, maybe, all of that is granular. It will send it through either through our optimized secure tunnel to the gateway and break out either to the public web or to your enterprise resources, whether it be on-premise or cloud. Or it can also send it directly to like a Microsoft cloud, right? It really depends on the customer's security posture and what they want to achieve with it. The great thing about the solution is that whether it goes direct or whether it goes through the gateway, the customer can choose to get visibility of the data. Visibility of the data means that you can enhance the experience by putting in the right policies. And this is not about like blocking things, right? This is about making sure that they have the best experience during the working hours and enhancing it. So that's sort of about how we implement it. And we can certainly, once you go and partner with us, we have a partner program that will sort of take you through around the demoing of it, the marketing collateral, all of that stuff. Then if we move to the slides, this is the most important one, right? This is why partners join this call, right? It's look, why would you partner with us? One of the things that I'm very keen on is to provide our partners with not just the best-in-class technology, but the best-in-class differentiation for your stack of solutions that you sell, right? We appreciate that you will not sell us in isolation. You will sell us with other technologies. And we want to make sure that that stack that you're selling is as solid as it is and that you can make money out of it. We are also we also provide additional resources to build services around our technology, professional services, all of those things that drive revenue growth that we will help you with. And most importantly, like we are 100% channel. We don't sell direct, right? So unlike some of the other vendors, we don't do direct. We are a smaller organization, but together with Nuvias's Frontier team, we are there to support you all the way. I talked about customer retention and satisfaction, customer retention. I also want to call out that our customer satisfaction rates, which is the Net Promoter Scores, are 91. Industry standard is about 50 within our industry. So customers love us, they keep us, and they renew with us. And they do that because of the support. So the technology is solid as they require it. We also have a comprehensive partner program that we can lead you through around onboarding. David mentioned around marketing collateral, running the lead gen programs, end user campaigns with you. We will support that all the way. And looking to the future, actually, we talked about NetMotion by Absolute. Now the difference is NetMotion as an organization was bought over by a company called Absolute Software, which provides end-to-end network, device resilience, and application persistence. So today we're launching the NetMotion software, which is part of the portfolio and provides that network resilience. But there is the other side of this, the portfolio, which is device resilience, application persistence, with about 500 million, yes, 500 million devices which actually have Absolute software embedded in them, right? So in the future, what you would be able to do together with us and Nuvias is to call out on that portfolio as well to provide your customers with access to the resilient, secure endpoint solution, which has the self-healing capabilities of applications, endpoint security, and intelligence. So end to end, you have a great cybersecurity solution, a network solution that you can take to market with your other add-on products to enable resilient working from anywhere. So that's all I had for today on this side. I'll hand it over to Sen for the further part of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Shamita. And what we'd like to do now is open it up for any questions and answers. Or hopefully we can have all the answers, but for sure, we'd like to open it up for questions from our partners. I love the backgrounds which are coming up, so that's awesome. I like that people are playing around with the backgrounds. And, you know, there's a couple of topics that Shamita, Icebrunt, David have touched on. So things we can talk about are the POC conversion rates, which were 67%, which is very, 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 very high. The fact that NetMotion is all software in its persistence. So basically, it's a pretty easy sell. You won't be hit by any of the logistics challenges that the whole world is having. The fact that it's an easy migration path from VPN, which is not dead, as Shamita said multiple times. If anything, it's more important than ever, towards ZTNA, towards SASE, or something I want to call out again, with all of us working from home and everybody having their own custom applications and public cloud applications, NetMotion gives you a very easy way to do the user experience monitoring, no matter where these applications are running to and from. And that's very critical and very powerful. And Shamita, maybe you want to touch a bit about just 1 or 2 sentences about the work that NetMotion does with Microsoft.
Yeah, definitely. So we are a Microsoft partner, and why we do that is that there's a couple of enhancements that we can provide into the Microsoft stack. One is because of the optimizations that we can do on the sort of the connection. What we can do is we can enhance the quality and the reliability of Teams calls, right? That's one big area that we look at. A lot of our customers during the lockdown, call centers, they had to move out of their offices into home offices. And imagine running a call center of 1,000, well, actually 50,000 people, which is one of our customers, 50,000 people working from home, trying to run Teams calls and Skype calls, right? With variable networks, with variable conditions. So we came in and really enabled this customer to have a really good quality customer call center experience, because we were able to hold up Teams calls and those kinds of things at 30–40% packet loss. So that was a really interesting use case where we enhanced the Microsoft technologies for audio and video optimization. That's one thing. And then the other thing is around Microsoft Intune and NetMotion really go together. As customers are really moving from some of the traditional MDMs around the world, like AirWatch and Ivan, T-Mobile Iron, they are moving to Microsoft. They are moving to Microsoft Intune, and we are one of the few recommended VPN ZTNA solutions that Microsoft provide into customers. So there is essentially a co-sell motion with the Microsoft stack, because we enhance the capabilities of the devices, but also we ensure some security capabilities as customers move to Microsoft Cloud. So there's a couple of things that we're doing with Microsoft Send.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shamita. And that was my first question to kick off the questions. And now I hand it over to the audience. Are there any other questions from anybody else? Any topic is fair game. Don't feel shy. It's an easy, there's a couple of things which really stood out, especially the POC part, right? So Ispan, do you you've sat in on one of those calls. Do you want to talk about, as someone who's relatively new and being trained up, how easy it was to understand the proposition from NetMotion?
Sure thing. No, it's the benefit of the NetMotion solution is that it's very clear and it gives a very clear overview of what is going on. So it's very transparent. It's very solid on its visibility and the reporting side. So it's really simple once you get in front of a customer to actually be able to show in practice. This is the client. Here's the policy screen. There is a very granular policy creation engine, basically, where you can take various different markers. So based on, for example, the type of device, but also the type of connection, the quality of the connection, the type of application. But they're also able to take in certain markers from third-party applications, that kind of thing, to combine into a very clear and concise policy. That simply commit that policy, and then one of the benefits also for POC, but also for the end user, is that it's actually quite easy from the client side to also see which policy is currently being enacted, which policy is currently active. So you can immediately see the effect, but you can also verify which of the policies is currently active and making the routing decisions. And that makes it very simple to showcase the solution once you have had that initial discussion with a customer and they've shown interest. It's really easy to show to give them that touch and feel with the end product, which I think is part of the reasons why you see that high conversion from POCs.
Thank you very much. Has that sparked any other questions? There we go. We have one from Melia. So who would like to take that one? I quickly read it out. Thank you very much for the question. How do you bring this to the attention of your customers when the competition is quite high? And indeed, maybe Shamita, I'll cue that up with you. You know, there are a couple of direct competitors, which when you compare the technology stacks are not really that direct anymore. But what has been your experience so far?
Yeah, so the experience is, yes, there are competitors that are in the ZTNA framework, and I mean VPNs. There are plenty of competitors, right? That are VPNs. I think when we go into a customer, we try to identify around what issues that we can solve, and we do a lot of a land and expand POC expansion concept rather than going in and saying look, you've got Cisco or you've got some other technology, replace everything with us, because we try to prove value and ROI within certain areas of the business. So even though you might be a full Cisco house, there are always opportunities within different business units for us to make a difference and us to prove ROI. As an example, we are talking to one of the transport big railway organizations within the Benelux region, and they will have multiple VPNs, multiple ZTNA solutions, but when it comes to solving their connectivity issues as trains move, or when we're trying to, we can essentially solve those problems. We can convert that into a conversation. That's when we win. We don't really go in saying you have to, we are a VPN, pull out all your technology and put us in. That doesn't really work. It really works when we go in and try to understand whether we can make a difference. And when we do the POC, we can actually, there's ROI measurements on the POC, or not just on the POC, on the platform, on the technology. You can actually go in and show them within these 30 days, this is the amount of network failures that you've actually had. You might have not noticed because end users are somewhere else, but we've solved these and we've kept the applications going. And this is the ROI in terms of minutes that we have saved you. So that's one thing. So proving ROI via POC. So hopefully that sort of answers your question, because we go in and identify business units and business cases with our customers or with our prospects that we can really solve, rather than going in and saying replace everything.
It's a very interesting perspective, right? Because I think the takeaway from that very critical example you talked about is that for a large institution, they're never going to give all of their connectivity to just one vendor, just one provider, and different subunits might have different requirements. So for example, in a railway environment, you might have IT saying, this is our corporate VPN standard, connecting in hub and spoke or site to site, whatever it might be. But as a subunit, the actual trains themselves, which are now rolling data centers, they have completely different requirements to that. And maybe a Cisco, a Juniper, somebody else, they can't meet all of those requirements. So that's why it's important to really understand what the end customer wants to do and to play to the strengths of NetMotion by Absolute. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Well, then the last part is the fun part. So I got given that part.
There's one question. If this comes in, indeed. Can this be suggested in a mid-market environment or just large businesses?
Who would like to take that one?
I can take that as well, Sen. We can work within mid-market as well. Keeping in mind, even for larger enterprises, we do a land and expand. So yeah, we are happy to work with mid-market as well. And especially in the Benelux region, we sort of have quite a few mid-markets. And if you take the ambulance services, right, which we have about 50+% of it, they are essentially 2 to 500 or that kind of range, right? So yeah, definitely we will work with mid-market, and it provides a lot of value. Large enterprises, we sort of tend to target the different business units and work from there. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
And I think the other critical thing to note about the NetMotion, again, just to bring up, it's completely software. And that's vendor agnostic, which is nice because you're not committed to locking yourself down to a large CPE device or setting up a CPE device, but you can integrate it with your current deployment. So there's a large opportunity to minimize deployment time, but maximize the actual services, professional services that you can offer to end users, as well as integrating into their current Microsoft stack and a whole bunch of other SaaS applications. So, you know, if anybody uses public cloud I think it's very applicable to the mid-market space. Any other questions? Because, you know, it seems to come in just as I'm about to move on to the last part of the slide. So I'm not going to rush this time. Thank you, Melia, for the questions, by the way, very insightful questions. So I think I have the last part of this, which is to kind of wrap it up. And, you know, in the spirit of a new year and it's a new vendor, what we'll ask you to do is to raise your glasses, whatever you want to put inside. So I have my glass handy, and I was, hopefully you can see that. It isn't, I've tried to recreate the meme, so. So what we will raise a glass to, there we go. I see a couple of cheers. I thought long and hard about it, and there is a great quote which has inspired me, certainly my whole professional career, and it's by Henry Ford. And what he said was, all this time ago, he said, there was a person that walked into his office, and, you know, they were talking about, Henry, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to beat Chrysler, General Motors, or whatever it might be. And he told them, this is what we have to do. We just have to go out there, and we have to build better cars and build it cheaper, and we have to offer the public something they want. And they said, yeah, but that's impossible. You know, you can't unseat these huge corporations, and who are we, and what are we doing? And, you know, they're offering better cars. And he said, look, I'm not the smartest man in the world. He was very, very good about saying that. But what he says was, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're always right. And I'd like to kick off this NetMotion partnership with that, to say, we believe that this is a huge win for the Benelux market. We know we're going to tackle a lot of business together. We look forward to working with everybody on this call to make that happen. You have a whole team behind you that believes that we can. So we're going to be right. So cheers to that. Cheers to the NetMotion team. Welcome on board. Cheers to all our partners. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the drink.
Thanks, Sen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to all the presenters, and especially one last thank you to the marketing team. You did a great job of putting this together. We very much appreciate it. Okay. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Nuvias. We will be sure to follow up with you, and we can definitely have one-on-one sessions. We can expand upon the solution more, walk you through the partner program, and there will be a follow-up. This was supposed to have been a live event. I was supposed to have worn this to be your bartender, which I was very happy to do. But thanks to Corona, we could not. But very soon into the future, we will have a live event once again when it is possible to do so. We will, of course, invite you over to our offices, and we can have a bit of a chat about it, have a roundtable. You can try it out, do test drives yourself. We will have some more cocktails available for you, and look out for more information as we go through the year. So with that, I wish you all a good day, and we speak to each other soon. Take care.
Thanks all. Take care.
Goodbye now.
Bye.